A simple birthday post just did something most press conferences and depth charts couldn't do. It revealed who the fan base already believes the real quarterback is. No announcement, no starter label, no official decision. Just a social media message from the Browns wishing Shedeur Sanders a happy birthday. And the reaction underneath it turned into a full-blown statement from the fans. At first glance, it looked routine. Teams post birthday graphics for players all the time. Happens every week. Easy engagement, quick goodwill, scroll past and move on. But this one didn't behave like a normal post. The comment section didn't fill with generic cake emojis and short wishes. It filled with emotional investment. Fans weren't just saying happy birthday. They were saying things like, "You made our games watchable again, and can't wait to see you light it up next season." That's not casual interaction. That's identity transfer. And when a fan base starts emotionally attaching hope to one player, especially at quarterback, that's when the story changes from social media content to franchise signal. What makes this moment even more interesting is the timing. The quarterback role is still officially undecided. Coaches are being careful with their words. Analysts are still debating projections. Yet the fan reaction is already decisive. It's loud, it's unified, and it's growing. That disconnect between official caution and public conviction is where momentum stories are born. But that's only part of it. Because on the same day as the birthday celebration, another moment happened that quietly showed why his reputation inside the spotlight keeps rising. A public joke at his expense that could have triggered a messy response, but didn't. The way he handled it added another layer to how fans and observers see his maturity and leadership ceiling. So this isn't really about balloons, cake, or a graphic post. It's about perception shift. It's about how fast a narrative can turn when performance flashes, personality control, and fan hunger collide at the same time. And what this one birthday message exposed might matter more than any early depth chart ever could. On the surface, it looked like standard team content: logo, graphic, birthday message, post button, done. NFL teams do this constantly. Every rostered player gets a shout-out. No controversy, no headlines, no deeper meaning. Except this one didn't land like routine content. It landed like a signal flare. The difference wasn't the post itself. The difference was the reaction curve. Within minutes, the engagement pattern separated from what teams usually see on birthday posts. Instead of light interaction, the comments filled with layered messages: hope, loyalty, expectation, even gratitude. Fans weren't just celebrating the player's age. They were talking about watchability, excitement, leadership, and the future of the team. That tells you the audience wasn't responding to the graphic. They were responding to what the player represents right now. Social teams inside pro franchises track this closely. Not just likes, sentiment, language, emotional intensity. When comment sections shift from casual to invested, organizations notice. Because emotional fan language is one of the strongest predictors of jersey sales, ticket demand, and appointment viewing. Another detail matters here. The Browns didn't limit interaction on the post. Comments stayed open. No heavy filtering. That means they were willing to let the public sentiment show itself in full view. Teams don't always do that when a position battle is sensitive. Leaving the conversation visible suggests they expected, or at least accepted, a strong fan response. Now, does a birthday post equal a starting job decision? No, that would be overstating it. But in modern sports branding, visibility is never random. Communications teams understand narrative timing. They know when a player is trending upward with the fan base, and when acknowledging that momentum builds connection rather than conflict. And what showed up under that post wasn't neutral, it was directional. But once you read what fans were actually saying, the message got even clearer. Because the fan base wasn't just supportive, they were already decided. If you really want to understand where a fan base stands, don't read the headline, read the comments. That's where filtered messaging disappears and raw sentiment shows up. And under this birthday post, the tone wasn't mixed or cautious. It was overwhelmingly directional. Fans weren't debating potential, they were speaking in conclusions. Messages poured in along the lines of "You made our games exciting again. Can't wait for you to start. And this is our guy." That kind of language matters. It shows emotional adoption, when supporters stop talking about a player as a prospect and start talking about him as the answer. That shift usually takes seasons. Here, it's happening early, and that speed is part of why the momentum feels different. What makes it more striking is the context. This is a fan base that has been burned repeatedly at the quarterback position. Optimism in that environment is usually slow and guarded. Yet the reaction here wasn't guarded at all, it was energized. That suggests the connection isn't just performance-based, it's identity-based. Fans feel like they're seeing someone they want to believe in, not just someone they're evaluating. Of course, not every comment was positive. There were critics and skeptics in the thread too. That always comes with any high-visibility player. But volume matters more than outliers. The supportive messages weren't just present, they dominated. In engagement analysis, that's called sentiment tilt, when one emotional direction clearly outweighs the other. There's also a behavior signal hidden inside those responses. Many comments looked forward, not backward. Fans weren't replaying what already happened. They were projecting what they expect next season. Future-focused language is a strong indicator of belief investment. But here, where things get interesting, fan conviction and organizational language are not perfectly aligned yet. Public excitement is running ahead of official labels. And when that gap appears, pressure inside the building starts to grow. Here, where the tension gets interesting. Publicly, the energy is rising fast. Fans sound convinced. Engagement is climbing. The player is being celebrated loudly. But officially, the language from the football side remains careful and controlled. No starter declaration. No depth chart promises. Just measured phrases like competition, development, and role to be determined. That contrast is not accidental. And it happens often inside NFL organizations during a potential quarterback transition. Teams operate on two timelines at once. The football timeline is slow, film-based, and performance-driven. The public timeline is fast, emotional, and momentum-driven. Coaches speak in certainty percentages. Fans speak in belief. When those two timelines start moving at different speeds, you get moments like this, where celebration optics run ahead of official designation. Now, it's important not to overread the signal. A birthday post is not a starter announcement. It doesn't override training camp reps or preseason performance. But communications teams are highly aware of narrative temperature. They know when a player has become a focal point of fan hope. A visible celebration acknowledges that connection rather than ignoring it. There's also a culture component. Public recognition builds internal buy-in. When organizations highlight a player, it strengthens the relationship loop, player to team, team to fans, fans back to player. That loop increases loyalty and motivation. It's soft power, but it's real. Some league observers have suggested, and this is speculation, not confirmation, that teams sometimes use social visibility as a low-risk way to test fan alignment before making bigger messaging moves. Let the reaction come in. Measure it. Learn from it. Again, that's theory, not inside proof, but it matches known brand strategy patterns. What makes this moment stand out even more is what happened alongside the birthday celebration. A small public jab that could have turned into drama, but instead turned into a character test. And how that test was handled may matter more than the post itself. Now let's talk about the moment that could have gone sideways, but didn't. Around the same birthday window, a media personality made a joking comment on camera about Shedeur being broke for not buying balloons at his own party. It was framed as humor, not a serious accusation. But in today's clipped and viral media world, even jokes can turn into ego battles fast. This is where young stars often stumble. One sarcastic comment turns into a defensive reply. That reply turns into a social media back and forth. Suddenly, the story shifts from celebration to conflict. We've seen it happen over and over: small joke, big reaction, messy headline. That's not what happened here. Instead of firing back, posting a rebuttal, or escalating the moment, he let it pass. No clapback, no defensive flex, no prove them wrong speech, just composure and forward movement. People close to the moment even hinted he chose not to engage after someone in his circle advised him to ignore it. Whether that detail is perfectly accurate or not, the visible outcome is he stayed above it. And that restraint plays extremely well in the quarterback leadership narrative. Franchise quarterbacks are evaluated on emotional control as much as arm talent. Coaches and front offices consistently rank composure under provocation as a top-tier trait. Why? Because Sunday pressure is louder than any joke. If a player reacts to every small slight, the weekly spotlight becomes a distraction machine. Fans notice this too. You can see it in reaction threads. Words like mature, locked in, unbothered, and leader showed up repeatedly. That language builds reputation capital. It turns neutral observers into supporters and supporters into advocates. It also reinforces a broader storyline, that the spotlight isn't too big for him, and the noise doesn't steer his behavior. That perception grows trust faster than statistics do. And what makes this even more powerful is that it lines up with something he said around his last birthday, something that shifted how many people view his leadership ceiling. Here's the detail that separates hype from character, and almost nobody talks about it enough. Around this same time last year, right before the draft spotlight fully exploded, he was asked a simple question: "What's your birthday wish?" Most future pros in that moment talk about draft position, contracts, success, legacy, or proving doubters wrong. Standard answers, expected answers, safe answers. That's not what he said. Instead, he said he wanted his college teammates to get drafted. He wanted opportunity for the guys who lined up next to him. He wanted doors open for others before guarantees for himself. That answer didn't trend like a hot take, but inside football circles, that kind of response gets remembered. Because leadership in locker rooms isn't built on speeches. It's built on patterns of self-orientation versus team orientation. Quarterbacks who last in the league almost always share one trait: teammates believe they're genuinely invested in everyone else's success. Not just publicly, but instinctively. When a player's first instinct is us instead of me, veterans buy in faster, coaches trust faster, receivers run harder routes, linemen block a half-second longer. That birthday wish became a reference point in fan discussions later. You'll see it brought up when people debate whether the support around him is personality-driven or performance-driven, because it suggests the support isn't just about throws, it's about presence. It also helps explain why teammates and former teammates consistently speak well of him when asked. That kind of consistent language pattern usually doesn't come from PR coaching. It comes from repeated behavior. And here's the retention hook most viewers don't see coming. This personal leadership image is now colliding with something much bigger: the business side of football. Because what's happening around him right now isn't just about locker rooms and fan comments. It's about ratings, engagement, and television value. And the numbers, according to multiple reports and online buzz, are starting to turn heads. Now we step into the part where the story moves from personality to impact. But we need to frame this correctly. There's been a lot of buzz online, with multiple outlets and fan pages claiming that games and appearances connected to Shedeur drove noticeable spikes in engagement and viewership. Some reports and social media analysts suggest that when he appears in high-visibility spots, showcase games, special events, or nationally discussed matchups, audience interest jumps fast. Important note: Exact numbers floating around online vary by source, and not every viral stat is officially confirmed. But what is clear is this: the engagement pattern is real. Clips trend faster, segments travel further, debate shows talk longer, fan reaction threads grow bigger. That's measurable momentum, even when the precise figures differ across reports. And in modern football, attention equals leverage. Television networks don't schedule primetime games based only on last year's win-loss record anymore. They schedule based on audience pull, storylines, star gravity, shareable moments, narrative energy. If a player consistently generates discussion, highlight traffic, and social engagement, schedule makers notice fast. There's growing talk among analysts and insiders that Cleveland is moving from regional interest team toward national curiosity team. That shift changes how often you get night games, featured matchups, and studio coverage. It changes how often your highlights lead shows instead of closing them. But here's the twist most casual viewers miss: hype creates opportunity, but it also creates pressure. Because once audience expectations rise, performance gets judged under a microscope. Every throw becomes a headline candidate. Every mistake becomes a debate topic. And that leads directly into the biggest tension point ahead: the quarterback decision, the coaching stance, and the question nobody inside the building is fully answering on record yet. Because momentum is building outside. But inside, the wording is still careful. And that contrast is where the real drama starts. Here, where the story tightens. Because while fan momentum is loud and media buzz is growing, the official language coming from inside the building has been noticeably cautious. Coaches and executives rarely rush declarations. They speak in phrases like competition, development, and evaluation period. And reports from team pressers suggest that leadership has continued using that exact framework when discussing the quarterback room. No coronations, no guarantees, just controlled messaging. And that creates tension. Because outside the facility, the conversation sounds completely different. Fans are already talking like the decision is obvious. Comment sections, call-in shows, and analyst panels are leaning one direction. You can feel the shift in tone. The debate is no longer could he be the guy. It's when will they officially say he's the guy. Those are two very different stages of a narrative. But insiders around the league often say organizations move slower than hype cycles. Development timelines don't always match fan timelines. Coaching staffs look at practice consistency, protection calls, coverage recognition, and film room command, not just highlight plays and crowd reaction. There's also another layer that rarely gets discussed publicly: locker room calibration. Veteran players, contract structures, and leadership hierarchies all factor into how quickly a team hands over the keys. Even when momentum points one way, internal politics and timing still matter. Some reports and analyst discussions suggest the team wants to avoid rushing the label, not because of doubt, but because of pressure management. It's been said that once you officially name a franchise quarterback, the expectation curve explodes overnight. Every game becomes a referendum. Every drive becomes a verdict. So the careful language might not be hesitation, it might be strategy. But here, what makes this moment different? The noise outside isn't fading. It's getting louder. And when outside pressure keeps building while inside messaging stays restrained, something eventually gives. The only question is whether that breaking point comes from a press conference or from performance on the field. And what happens next would flip the entire conversation from projection to proof. Step back from the hype for a second and look at what this whole moment actually proves. Not the rumors, not the fan wars, not the hot takes, but the pattern. A young quarterback stepped into a pressure-heavy environment, carried a famous last name, faced non-stop media narratives, draft night criticism, and constant speculation, and didn't fold, didn't spiral, didn't start firing back at every critic. Reports, interviews, and public appearances all show the same through line. Composure first, response second. That matters more than any single stat line. There's been a lot of buzz online, fans speculating, analysts debating, insiders hinting about his trajectory, his role, and his ceiling. But speculation is still speculation. What we do know is simpler and more powerful. Attention is earned, not assigned. And right now, he's earning attention across multiple layers: fans, media, former players, and league conversations. That doesn't automatically crown a superstar, but it does mark a turning point. Because franchises don't change when hype appears, they change when belief appears. And belief is forming. You can see it in fan reactions, engagement patterns, and how often his name now enters national discussions. That's not manufactured, that's momentum. At the same time, this is where reality checks in. Momentum creates opportunity, not guarantees. The league adjusts. Defenses study tendencies. Coordinators build counters. The second chapter is always harder than the first splash moment. Every rising player hits that test phase. But here, the difference observers keep pointing out: the mental framework looks built for the long game. Teammate first language, calm under criticism, no panic responses to media noise. Those traits travel well when adversity shows up, and it always does. So the real takeaway is: the future is locked. It's this: the door is open, the spotlight is real, the pressure is coming, and the opportunity is undeniable. Now it shifts from narrative to performance. And that's where